So today we're going over home buying 101. I haven't really made a video in depth in this or about this topic in such a long time. And I felt the need to really go over this with everyone. Um, and I think this is very important for you as a buyer. If this is either your first time or buying again, or you haven't bought a home in a very long time, here are some very key points you must know before you buy a home. You know, it can be very exciting and it could also be very stressful. Those are very common emotions. Just know that you're going to be excited and super stressed out and fear because you're going into a world of the unknown. There's very few people who, they do this so many times. There is zero stress in them. They see the house and know what they want. They expect. They already have everything in their mind because they have the knowledge of it. And that could be you as well. But because this is probably your first time, I'm here to help you out every step of the way. And I want to let you know the moment you feel stressful, anxiety, stressed out, overwhelmed, these are common symptoms, and a lot of it's because you lack an understanding of this, and not to like diminish you or something like that. I'm not trying to go there, but I'm just trying to say, ask questions throughout the process. I'll try to make sure to give you the full explanation of what's going on. Now, most buyers really don't know where to start. They want to buy a home, and or a lot of people probably don't think they can afford a home or they can get a home because, their mom and dad rented, there's all their friends rented, and they don't know that there's so many options and there's so many ways that, yes, you can get a home and it's possible. There's so many options. I wish I would have known, someone would have told me back then, especially way back then when homes were way cheaper. And I'm like, where was I? Where was the people going out, reaching and telling me I can get a home? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can get a home. It's possible. Um, and I'm here to help you. The purpose of this video is to kind of help you, avoid costly mistakes, to put you in the right track. So to start with everything, you need to know, what is your why? Why are you buying a house? What's the purpose? And, a lot of people are feared and they're like, and they'll tell me, yeah, I want to buy a house, but the market, I'm just waiting for the market to get right. Why? You're not a home investor. If you're an investor, that makes sense. But if you're renting, especially if you're renting anything $1,500 or more per month, what are you doing? You're throwing away so much money. Just trash. That's $20,000 a year or more. You're just throwing away, depending on your rent. Most people are paying $2,000 or more renting. There's an apartment, in Lake Wells, which drives me crazy. It's like $3,000 a month. So you're paying $3,000 a month for a small apartment when you can get a house for way less than that. If you're paying $3,000 a month, we could get you a really, really nice home. And but you need to know your why. What's the purpose of your mind? Like, hey, are you getting married? Are you do you want to have somewhere stable? Are you relocating? Are you downsizing? Renting is never a solution. And the reason I say that is rent goes up. Stuff happens and they could kick you out of the home in a short notice, and then you're on a street, then you're stuck in a rut, and life happens. If you have a home and financial stuff hits, there's options. If your credit gets shot, but you can still make your monthly payments, you're fine. No one's going to kick you out of the home overnight. If you're renting and let's say stuff happens, then you get a letter, 30-day notice. Hey, we're selling the house. You're going to have to leave, or something happens. That really puts you in a tough situation because now you have to, life event happen. And then, when stuff happens, more stuff bad happens. So when you get a home, there's a lot of stability in that. And if you let time do its thing, you build wealth on that. And the only reason I would say renting is a good choice is if the rent is, I would say, $1,000 or less. You know, I've seen people, sadly, they don't, they have their own rental properties, and they don't know how the market is, and they're renting the properties for like 500-600 bucks a month, and they're like, well, I didn't know the market went up. And hey, great for the people living there. Sad for them because a lot of them are, you just, they're losing a lot of money. But there are those rare cases where you're paying under $1,000. Stay there. If you're trying to build a lot of, build your income, fix your stuff, stay there as long as you can to build, because those are rare opportunities. If you're staying at home, if you're living with your parents and you're not married, stay there, build, maybe help them out with the mortgage, with their mortgage and whatnot. Save up your funds. Why do you need to rush out to get something unless you're about to get married? That's my opinion. That's what I would say too. Stay with your parents until you're ready to get married. Build that wealth. Why do you let society say when you're 18 years old, you got to go out on your own? That hits you financially. That hurts you. Now, if you could stay home and build wealth, build that savings account, when it's time for you to go actually buy a house, you don't need all these down payment assistance programs. You're not going to be in a financial need. You're going to have so much money saved up. You could put 20% down. You don't have to worry about, paying insurance on your mortgage, on your, you have the insurance for your home, but you have an insurance for your mortgage that you're going to be paying monthly. You don't have to worry about that because you have such a large payment because you're saving at home. Now, those are some things I would say, hey, wait. But for those who have to buy a house, know the reason why and forget about the market. And there's a reason why you're buying a house. And that's what we're going to focus on. Now, first step is we got to get pre-approved early. Getting pre-approved, talking to a lender, and not just any lender. Talk to a few lenders, and if you don't have anyone, come talk to me. I could give you some. Talk to the lender, and they could let you know you are ready today. Or they'll say, your credit's messed up, but we have a way to help you. We could show you. You know what? Let them know also, hey, I want my payments to be $1,500 a month, or I want my payments to be under $2,000 or under $2,500. Let them know where your monthly payments need to be, and then they could tell you how much down payment. They could tell you the whole avenue, the every step of the way to get to your home. And that's what you want. You want to get this pre-approval process started early. Whether you're looking to buy today or next year, get this part early, because then you know what to do. And don't get afraid, oh, they're going to pull my credit. It's fine. Let them do the hard run, because you have a purpose, and the purpose is to buy a home. So, and also, realtor is going to show a house if you don't have a pre-approval. It just doesn't make sense. We're looking at, hey, I want to buy this house. I saw this area, $300,000 homes. I love to see it. And then you go out to these $350,000 home, and then when it's actually time to kind of get in there, and then you find out you're pre-approved for $250. And then you get devastated. Then your heart and your appetite is for this quality, and then you see homes at the $250, and trust me, you can notice a big change. At the $250 price point, you're going to start to see these homes. They're not brand new, but they're going to need a lot of, especially a lot more cosmetic stuff versus the $300 to $350, and every $50,000 you can see a big difference. So you want to get this part ahead of time first. Next from there is choose a realtor who knows what they're doing. Unfortunately, many realtors, bless their heart, some people just don't know what they're doing. They get their license and they're part-time. They just don't know. They just don't know. And what I'm saying by that is, I'm sure they have a desire to know. And when I first started, I could see how I could have done things a lot better. I've lost a lot of clients when I first started because I didn't have the coaching and the teaching to how to correctly work with buyers, to show buyers, to negotiate things for buyers. I didn't know a lot of those things. So make sure, and then especially knowing the different areas. If your realtor doesn't know certain areas and neighborhoods, you should question that. Come to me. I know those areas. And areas I don't know, guess what? I know people in those areas, which is pretty awesome. And and which is pretty good is I'm part of a network that we work with a bunch of realtors, and we make sure we work with realtors in these spots that are well known. I lived in Florida since 98, so I don't want to do the math. Since 98, and I know this area very, very well. I was a concierge. I used to work for Expedia.com, and till this day, people still call me. I don't work for them, of course, anymore. But I used to work for Expedia, so I knew all the things about places to visit, things in different neighborhoods, and things to do. And I haven't worked for them in 5, 6 years. So get someone who knows the area to help you find a home, who's going to help you find the needs, because once you have a list of needs, and here's some needs that you may not think of: grocery stores, doctor's office, pharmacies, places to enjoy yourself, parks for your kids, recreational stuff, not just jobs, but also your church. If you're, I hope everyone comes to my church. I'm just like that. Come get saved and go to my church. But if you go to another church, or if you're part of another group, you need to know what's in these areas. You need to know. And if you work with someone who's not knowledgeable in these things, you're going to miss out. So once once you get your pre-approval, which is the very first step, and let's say I get a phone call, you get the phone call, Luis, they're fully pre-approved. Next is we go do the home search. Because once we get the pre-approval, then, the lender's going to say, hey, make sure the homes, because, their max is right now 325. Let's try to keep it, like where the insurance is going to be pretty low, because they really need something big, but we can't go too high in the insurance or taxes. And what I'm saying insurance on that is older homes, the insurance is more than likely going to be more. I live in a 100-year-old house. Trust me, the insurance is way more versus if you live in a brand new home. It's crazy cheap comparison. I live in a tiny 100-year-old, like Sears catalog type home, and I'm paying about $4,000 a year, where a new home, 3 times the size of my house, 4 times the size of my house, they're paying about $700, which is insane. So we keep those in mind. Also, taxes. Some areas, some cities, the taxes are a lot higher in these areas, and taxes are a lot lower in other parts. So we'll definitely keep in mind of the homes, at least for that year, and show you what's available. And once we get that information, we can start doing the search. And that you're going to make a list of the things you want: 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 4 bedrooms, 2-story, 1-story. Now, once you make that list, we're sticking to that list. If you're telling me you want a 4-bedroom, 2 bath, and it says, Luis, it must be 4 bedrooms. Anything that's a 3-bedroom, we're not looking at. And the reason I do that is because when you have so much options, you get confused, you get stressed out. If you have a list and you say, I'm not stepping out of the car until it matches my criteria, then I promise you, you're going to find a house that you love. But if you have a list that is like, it's 4 bedrooms, but I could do 3. If it's a 2, but with a possibility that I could make the garage into a 3, we're never going to find you a home, because we could do possibilities for possibilities on and all this stuff. But if you have a list of criteria, you're not buying a car, you're not buying, something that's going to hurt you for like a few months. You're buying a house that's going to be about $250,000, $500,000 or more, This is going to be one of the largest investments in your life. Make sure it's the house that you want. So let's get it. If you're okay with the 2 bedroom, then fine. We'll look at 2 bedrooms. Now, if we're looking under 300 or under $250,000, you're going to have to be open to a 2 bedroom, because it's going to be really rare to find a 4 bedroom unless the house is completely falling apart and you're fixing to flip in the home, you know. So you have to keep in mind the price point. But once we find the house that you want, and we narrow that down. I'm not going to show you a million homes because then that's not telling me what you want. Maybe the first time, if you don't know what's out there, then what I like to do the first day, I like to book quite a few different homes to show you a huge variety. Then from there, you make a list of the things that you really like and things that you don't like. Learn the different areas before. That's another thing I would say before. Do Uber Eats. Here's the fun thing. You could get paid while doing Uber Eats in the neighborhood you want to live in. Check it out, see how the neighbors are, see how people are, see the restaurants in that area, see if that's a place that you could see you living for at least the next 5 to 7 years, see if it's worth it. But from there, once we get the house that you like, we put in the offer and we're going to negotiate. Now, depending on the market and depending on the home is how we can negotiate. If the home is one day on the market and it's, don't expect to put in $20,000 to $30,000 off the price and expect them to, to accept it. They're not, Now, if it's been on the market for like 2 years, I wouldn't, we're going to find out why it's been on the market for such a long time. But then for sure, yeah, we can negotiate a few things. More than likely it's priced too high. But when we make an offer, I also like to make an offer with comps. I like to show the reason, I justify the offer, and sadly, I've had a very few times where the sellers will say, I see what the comps are, but I'm not lowering the price, even though it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over comps. And, with that, that seller's just not ready to sell. But for other people, they see that, they'll get a little bit upset, but, they'll drop the price. Like, I see it makes sense, and they'll drop it. Also, if you're looking for closing cost assistance, depending on the offer we make, I wouldn't dip so low if we're going to be asking for much. It's going to counter offer. You have to think of yourself as a seller. Are you going to accept an offer if they come in at, $15,000 or $10,000 below offer, and then they're asking for 6%? You're going to be crazy. Like, no, find me another thing, or send this back to them and say, we'll give them a 1%. It's, we're going to make an offer because the whole point, I'm going to make sure you get the best deal, but also we have to be wise with how we make our deals because we also want them to agree to it. But from here, also, once we go through that and it gets accepted, make sure you have money for these 3 things, I would say. At least you have some money for your escrow. And escrow is usually, I would say, 1,000 to 1%. I really don't do more than that, unless it's a big seller's market. We're trying to make a difference, but 1,000 to 1% is very fair. From there, your inspection cost, you're looking at about $500 and then going up from there. Your basic home inspection, and then you have your 4-point, your wind mitigation. Now, you don't need to get a home inspection. You don't need to get a home inspection, but you do need the 4-point if you want the insurance, and you need the wind mitigation if you need discounts for your insurance. But make sure you get a home inspection, because I would rather lose $500 in an inspection than buy a house and then come to find out it's full of termites, mold, and then that $500 you could have saved and walked away from, you could have easily, now you're going to end up paying $20,000, $30,000, because you chose not to pay for a home inspection. Come on. And I actually had this happen once. I had a buyer, they didn't want to do the home inspection. Like, no, we're good. We're handyman. We could fix the house. We can do it. I'm like, no, just do this, please. And thank God, I like a week or two prior, I went to some real estate conference, and I won a free home inspection from some company. And when this family, it was a young couple, very, very young guy buying his very first house. And he was told, he didn't have to get the home inspection. He's like, nah, don't get it. Don't worry. And I was like, this is bad advice. So thank God, since I won that free home inspection, I gave it to him. I'm like, please use this. And guess what? The roof was leaking. There was a lot of issues with the home, and we got every single thing replaced. And he got a brand new roof, got to pick out the color. And I'm like, dude, I just saved you like $50,000 worth of stuff in the house. And here's the thing. You would have gotten your home. Then you have like 30 days to, if you just forego all this stuff, you have 30 days to get a 4-point from an insurance. They're going to go on the roof, and they're going to see a lot of the stuff that these people missed. And then you're going to have to come out and foot all that money. And that would have cost you way more. And thank God he didn't have to pay a penny for all those repairs. The seller was able to do everything, and it was pretty cool. So please, I don't have any other free home inspections. So get a home inspection done, please. It'll save you. If anything, it'll give you a great to-do list. If you're, one of those, I could do it myself, it'll give you a great to-do list. And then from there, after, let's say we negotiate the stuff on the home. It's, mind you, Florida is as is. As is means anything you request them, they're going to say, nope, I don't want to do it. Now, if you're a seller, that's not smart, because you want to sell your property. And I would, at least as a seller, if we need to get the loan to approve. Yes, you don't have to fix anything, but we need the loan to approve. So you have to at least get the home where it could be insured. And for buyers, if anything, I would skip a lot of the cosmetic stuff, and let's ask for things that's going to get the home approved. And if it's a few other cosmetic stuff that's major, then we could shoot for those. But mostly it's going to be structural first and cosmetic maybe later. But that's what we're going to focus on. And then the appraisal, you're looking for a few $100 for the appraisal. So those are 3 costs you have to be aware of. If you are completely broken, don't have a penny to your name, right now is not the time to buy. But if you have at least $2,000 laying around for the inspection and the appraisal, because the inspections could go from just the home inspection, 4-point wind mitigation, and WDO, which is a wood destroying organism. And then you could add a septic inspection, add a well inspection, add, a pool inspection. You could add an inspection on a seawall. You could add inspections to a bunch of different things. So it all depends on the type of home that you have and what type of inspections you need to do. But everything else is added on regular. You're looking at around $500, $475 to maybe $600, depending on the size of the home. The bigger the home is going to be about an extra, $50 per, the every 500 square feet for most companies. And then if you do a septic inspection, which I would recommend, if it's the home that you're going to, if you're doing a VA, you're going to have to do a septic inspection. But and a septic inspection is about $300, $350. Some are less, some are more. So just have that in mind. Put away $1,000 for inspection, and then for the appraisal, put away about $500 for the appraisal. So just keep that in mind, and then you have your escrow, which you put in within the first 3 days. After that, your loan's approved, and then closing day. Don't fall in love with the house until you close. Wait. You have to, men are very logical. They're like, they put stuff in books. Women are a little bit more emotional, more attached to things. I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. I'm just, this is how we are naturally. You have to detach yourself from the property and look at it as a business, as a block, as a box thing. Don't fall in love with it. Don't attach to it until the day you close, because stuff can still happen to lose at home. It could be a sinkhole, it could be a fire, it could be a lost job. And I've had people who lost their job literally 2 days before closing, and they almost lost the house. Don't fall in love with it until you get that key in your hand and you sign and say, congratulations, you got your new home. Let's don't do that. Another thing is things to avoid. Don't buy any large purchases. Don't open up any credit cards during this whole time. Don't get excited and go to like a furniture outlet store and they got a great deal going on. You will lose your home. And I've had people, this happens a lot during Christmas. I was selling a property, and this one lady, she came and she bought a bunch of Christmas gifts for all her kids and her grandkids and niece and nephews and all this stuff. And she goes, "Oh, I opened it in a credit card that I opened up in a credit card that's not, that the lender, that I didn't give to the lender." It's like, no, the lender still checks this. And she ended up she lost the house. She racked up so much debt during Christmas, she couldn't pay it back. And, they were willing, my sellers were willing to wait, but she messed up so much and she couldn't pay that all back. She racked up like, I think it was like $5,000, almost $6,000 in so much debt within that month. She totally messed up her income. It was pretty bad. And again, I mentioned, don't skip the inspections, and then don't not ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you're not going to know. Because at the day of closing, it's too late. Ask questions, get questions, text questions, email questions, put all your questions. And if there's something I don't know, I'm going to find out. I'm going to find someone who knows. But every question you have, ask. I've had questions, and I've told countless of people, no one's ever asked me that question, or no, I've never even thought about that. There's no dumb question. If you're going to live there, if you're going to be putting down over $100,000 onto a property, you better ask a lot of questions. You're not bothering anyone. You're supposed to. If a realtor gets mad that you're asking questions, it's because you didn't use me. You should have used me. Call me. I'll answer all your questions. I'll ask. I'll find out. Buying your first home doesn't have to be confusing. It is. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it, but I promise I'll make every step of the way very easy. We'll look at some houses, and to be honest, at first, and this happens a lot, people are like, "Oh, I want to live in this area. My budget's $300." Okay, so we'll look at it. And then they're like, "Oh." And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, first I'll say, "Hey, what about this area on this side?" They're like, "No way. Oh, that's too far. That's like an extra 10-minute drive to work. No, I don't want to do it." And then they look at houses over here. And then after they see it, I'm like, well, let's look over here. It's this 10 minutes extra drive. And then they see this beautiful, nice house, and then they're like, okay, you know what? I could live there. 10 minutes 15 minutes ain't too bad. I was getting the house that I want. Yeah, I could do it. But with the right guidance, I promise I can make this smooth and enjoyable. And I encourage viewers like you, people who follow, if you're looking to buy a home here in Central Florida, please call me. Like, subscribe, put a comment below. And my phone number is 407-790-6232. I'd love to help you get a home. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.